Hi everyone, welcome to the virtual roundtable discussion series, chapter 3 and Beyond the Box. First of all, I want to thank all of you for making this discussion series such a huge success. I am just overwhelmed with the response all these sessions have been receiving, and I'm really happy to know that all of you are finding them useful, because that was the whole idea of doing this series because there are many aspects of creative writing that everybody is always, looking for guidance on. So I'm really glad it's helping you all. Now, today's topic is actually, I should say it's quite a coincidence because it is everywhere today on social media. We have the microfiction challenge going on, and some of our panelists, in fact, have also posted wonderful, stories as a part of it, and it is really there everywhere. And I thought that, it's such a coincidence because I had thought of planning this session much in advance. So I guess it just, like they say, things happen at the right time. So today's topic is microfiction writing, and it is about packing more in less. And I'm super excited because I have a super panel with me. They are all microfiction maestros of India, according to me. They have, in fact, I would say that they have kind of pioneered microfiction writing, because microfiction, I think, has caught on in the last couple of years, but there are writers who have been doing it from much before, and it would be wonderful to learn from them, and I'm sure you all are looking forward to it too. So let me not take more of screen time and quickly introduce my guest to you for today. So my first guest is my namesake. Hi, Anupama.
Hi, Anupama. It feels
Thank
strange.
you so much for joining. So let me just quickly introduce you I'm sure everybody watching knows you, but yeah, just, for those who probably don't. So Anupama Jain is the author of When Padma Bani Paula, a breezy novel about acing the second chances of life by staying true to one's roots, and Masala Mix Potpourri of Shorts, a short story collection on the myriad manifestations of love, both published by Reedomania. She's a contributing author to Chronicles of Urban Nomads, Crossed and Knotted, When They Spoke, Mock, Stock and Quarrel, the Reedomania Book of Horror, the Reedomania Book of Folk Tales, the Reedomania Book of Crime Thrillers, the Reedomania Book of Romance, which, by the way, I've read recently, When Women Speak Up, which is an ebook of inspiring stories published by Women's Web. She has been a top blogger across various coveted online forums and has won numerous awards. She blogs. She blogs. I don't know how exactly it is pronounced. Anupama, if you could do that for me.
It's Akka Acid Bake. It's a takeoff on Auntie Acid. So Auntie Acid
Interesting. Okay. Okay, great. And of course, we all know her favorite genre is humor. She's the humor queen. And one very interesting aspect to her is that she is the founder and admin of Senior School Moms, which is a popular Facebook group. And she stays in Gurgaon with her family. So thank you. And that was quite a profile, I must say. Great achievements there.
Thank you so much, Anupama, for that rather generous and extremely kind introduction. As simply put, I like to write. I suffer from verbal diarrhea, so I need to, say something. I think we have an opinion on everything, so that's why I need to write a lot. More than that, my serious work is as the admin of Senior School Moms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I hope your verbal diarrhea never gets cured.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so then we have with us Archana Sarat. Okay, now let me tell you all that I have been following Archana's micro tales from I don't know how many years now. Like, I think when I started blogging from then, and microfiction was not even that popular that time. Now, like I said, even in the introduction, that now it has caught on. But she has been writing, and trust me, if you haven't already read her micro tales, you must read them. She is fabulous. So, Archana Sarat is the author of Birds of Prey, a psychological crime thriller that has gathered acclaim for being a gripping and riveting read. It is in the process of being adapted to the screen, which is wonderful. Her second book, Tales from the History of Mathematics, a set of historical short stories, won the Best Book Award at the Valley of Words International Literature Festival 2019. Her other book, Tit for Tat, is a collection of flash fiction stories, and we'll be talking more about that book during the session. Her articles have been widely published in various popular newspapers and magazines. Her short stories and poetry have appeared in various magazines and anthologies. She's the founder of Read, Write, Inspire, a writer's studio filled with resources that motivate writers to read deeper, write better, and create a strong author platform. She's popular in the online world for her flash fiction that appears every day called Saturday Shorts. Though she's a chartered accountant by qualification, she took up her childhood love for writing as her vocation. She hopes her writing can inform, educate, impact, and entertain at the same time. Thank you so much for joining us today, Archana.
Thank you, Anupama. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, same here. Okay, now my next guest is I think I call her a bundle of energy. That's Meera Barath. So whenever I'm awake at 2 in the night doing something, because I'm known for this, people say that I don't know when do you sleep, because we always see her online posting something here and there. So there's one person who would always be awake when I'm awake at an odd time, and that is Meera. So if I have to message somebody at an odd time in the night, I know that she is another person who is really working hard for all that she's doing. So Meera is a wandering dinosaur and a passionpreneur. I like how you call it passionpreneur, Meera. She's an MSc in psychology, NLP master practitioner with 14 years of work experience in the recruitment and HR with the corporates, and currently working as a trainer, coach, and an enabler with the institutions, schools, organizations using neuro-linguistic programming and storytelling concepts as a tool. Meera has published Maya Katha and Coffee with Soul and co-authored 12 books. She has been awarded as Author of the Year 2019 by #NE8X Online Literature Fest for her debut book, Maya Katha, certified as one of the top 100 debut authors by Critics Space and Literature's Light for the year 2019 and 2020. Awarded as the Spirit Mania Influential Women of the Year Award 2020 and Nari Saman Women of Substance by Literoma in 2020. She runs an online writing community along with her Dino Battalion called Let's Make Stories Dino, and a storytelling community in the name of Maya Katha, where stories dance on Facebook. Now, Meera, that is like you do quite a lot of things. So thank you so much for joining us today. Meera, I think you will have
I'm sorry, I was on mute mode. Thanks a ton, Anu. It's my pleasure to travel with all of you. It's a lovely platform. Thanks a ton, Anu.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, our guest, Reetwika Banerjee, who, I was really hoping she can take out time for this session, because, she's a new mother, and of course, she has to juggle a lot, but I'm glad that she finally could take out time for this. Reetwika Banerjee is a data privacy consultant presently associated with the North American conglomerate as cybersecurity and compliance lead. You know what? It's so interesting that all of you are into such different things. I mean, writing is like on another spectrum altogether.
It's writing that connects us all, actually.
Panel here today. Her principal role is to advocate their clients on high-tech cybersecurity breaches and how to prevent sensitive data leakages out of their organization's network. She's an electrical engineer, holds international management degree in information system and security, and aims to be the face of women in security. That's wonderful. And of course, she has a lot of achievements as an author. She has authored, I think, 9 books, as I see in her, bibliography, some of them being Fantastic 40, which is a collection of 40 micro-stories, which was released in 2014. Zenova 20, assortment of 20 short stories released in 2016. And she also has Bengali, I see Bhanga Mone Dinga, which is a set of 50 Bengali poems, which is wonderful. So she's closely associated with a couple of charitable societies as well in Bengal. And, divinely blessed by Saint Teresa of Calcutta in her childhood, she dreams to follow mothers, preaching by heart, and create a liberal India for all. And I'm sure you're doing that already with your work, not just in the writing space, but, all the different things that you're doing. So thank you so much, Reetwika, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Anupama, for bringing all of us together. This is really a wonderful platform. I think so many brilliant
I feel so honored that you all are here today.
It's indeed fantastic. I mean, listening to all your profiles, it is so humbling and mind-boggling and such varied interests and varied
Right.
talent. Anupama, kudos to you. Totally.
Yeah.
Really,
Yay.
Anupama. It's
And thank God she's not reading her profile. Otherwise, we'll have to shut shop
Oh
right
my
away.
God.
Yeah, we need
For
to
a
boost her
moment, I was
profile as
thinking,
well.
actually, what happened is today, for a moment, I was thinking that when you all actually read out your microfiction story, maybe I'll read out one of mine too. Then I thought, okay, no, let it just be about my guest today.
no,
But,
Anupama, we love to hear you. In fact, we
You
should
should read
start with
it.
your micro story today.
let's see. But yeah, so audience, if you have any questions, because I know that this has been one session which has been really awaited by all the writers, because everybody today I know is definitely trying their hand at microfiction writing. So whatever questions you have, please keep posting, and as and when I have time during the session, I will take them up. Okay, so I want to begin this panel discussion with a little generic question before we actually go on to talking about microfiction writing. How did the writing bug hit you? Because especially some of you are completely, like I said, from a very different field. So how did that writing bug kind of come and attack you? I must say, attacked in a good way. So maybe we can start with you, Anupama.
I have written about this literally every second day.
I know.
2013, if somebody had told me I would be sitting like this as a published author and talking about microfiction, I would have said, yeah, in your dreams. So I'm an MCA. So I've run a mom pop show, with my husband, overlooking a team of programmers. I had no clue about writing. I'm terrible. I'm not trained also, right? But in 2013, we lost my father-in-law, and I was also diagnosed with TB. So I was very unwell. My son was in a very important phase of education. So I had absolutely no energy. So there was this friend of mine called Samriti Singh. She was leaving for the US. She added me to a very upcoming group called Gurgaon Moms. So with nothing to do, I would write tiny posts there, and the likes that I got there were literally, for lack of a better word, aphrodisiac. I could have some power coming through me because the likes were like, life affirming. You were somebody. And one fine day, I just wrote a short story just on the whim, because somebody had written a story about infidelity.
Right.
So I wrote a story about the effect it has on children. Because everybody writes about the mother or the father, but nobody talks about the children. So when I wrote about that, and there were a lot of comments, I said, wow, I couldn't string some words together. So that went into my first anthology. Then the anthology was getting in Oxford bookstores in Connaught Place in Delhi. So I said, my God, this is a very dashing world to be part of. There's book release, there's some TV sound bites, and everybody's and we're all sending words to heal each other. I said, wow, what else? So then I started writing. Then Shwet guided me to My City for Kids. Then it was, I can never get myself to call it Mom's Press or somehow.
I relate to that because even I started when it was My City for Kids, and so like they say, My City for Kids is an emotion.
Yeah, exactly. So that there I learned the discipline of restricting yourself not more than 500 words, and so on and so forth. Then anthologies and blogging happened side by side, and then there was another tale. I had submitted a tale, 270 odd words for. A humor competition. Then Dipankar Mukherjee said it was just one character going in and lift for 2 minutes. So he said, "Why don't you pull out a novel?" I said, "That's like pulling a rabbit out of a hat." But pull we did, and that's how things happen.
And rest, as they say, is history. That's great. Nice to know that, Anupama. So, what about you, Archana? How did the writing bug attack you?
So I think for me, I can't remember a time when I was not writing. So I still remember I used to have this this LIC diary which used to come in those years, which was I think a staple in all the households. And I must have been about 8 years or so at that. When I was about 8 years or so, and I used to write my poems and my stories, and catch hold of whoever I could find and make them sit and read it out to them. so
Correct.
that's how I think it went on. But the seriously, I never thought of it as a career or as a
Okay.
profession or whatever. I never thought about it in that way. That happened, I think, when I was pregnant with my first son, which was
Okay.
about 15 years back. So that was when I seriously thought of writing as an option and actually publishing in a magazines, because till then it was just writing for myself and sharing it with people around me,
Right.
but
Right.
never about getting published in a magazine or all that. So after that, I think for nearly 10 years, even then, the thought of a book didn't come into my head. I was writing so many short stories, articles, and poetry, getting published in various newspapers, magazines, anthologies, and it just went on like that. And I think somewhere after that, the natural progression was to write a book, I guess, and that's how it happened. So
Right.
that's how
Right.
my first book
Okay.
happened. And
Nice.
when I was writing the first book, which is about 5 years ago, I was very bored. Frankly, that is the right word to use, because there was this work I was working on for years together, and and I didn't have that that shot of happiness which comes in whenever you see something published. So that's
Right.
why I started writing microfiction. Actually, at that time, I don't think it was very popular too. So I just writing
Yes.
something every
Yes.
Saturday and posting it on Facebook, and immediately getting people to read it, comment on it, made me so happy, and I continued doing that for nearly, I think, 2 years. So for nearly 2 years,
Wonderful. Yeah,
every
that's really wonderful.
so
Right.
that's how.
Right. Right.
Archana, I was a big fan. I am still of those tit for tats. I would wait for the Saturday mornings, and I was still.
Same here.
I would do
Yes.
those.
So I also did not know Archana personally that time, but I remember I used to follow those Saturday shots.
Saturday shots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
even I didn't realize that it's going to be so popular, because after that,
Right.
Free Press Journal editor got to reading it, and she liked it so much that after it was I used to put it on Facebook on Saturday. After that, in Sunday, in the literary column, they used to publish it. So I was,
Yes.
I'm getting published. This also is publishable.
Right. Yeah. Right. 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 Great. That's wonderful. What about you, Reetwika? How did it happen in your case?
Well, I'll rather say writing happened to me like a child's play, because thanks to my parents, we used to travel every year to some or the other place. And every time I came back from a place, my mother always encouraged me to at least write down your
Okay.
memories, your best
Okay.
5 memories, and what are the best places you visited, something which you will cherish when you grow up. That was her idea. So that was the first time when I
That's
started
great.
feeling, Arey, I enjoy writing. So in the beginning, it was like some
Hmm.
1 2 points or something like that. Then my mother, actually, she
Okay.
is also a writer. So she then started giving me her
Wow. I
valuable
think it's
feedback. I was very
nothing
lucky.
better than, getting feedback from mom, I guess.
Very true. So that's how writing actually started
Okay,
for me.
wonderful. That's lovely to know. And
And then as I grew up,
yeah, so then how did it happen professionally? Like after that? Hmm.
like as I grew up in my school days and even in colleges, I was the editor of our magazine, like school
Okay.
magazine and college magazine, and various other things which literally things which initiatives which we had taken, like the magazine it was called. Like everybody used to write it in on hand and then put it on a chart paper and press it on the college board or the school notice board. That
Right.
was a very big hit at that point of time. So it was very new as a concept. So I was one of the student editors of that magazine. So that's how then
Okay.
one of my teachers, he had a publisher friend who then actually suggested me to maybe connect with them, and if they like it, and then it happened like they really liked it. But then I was more into my studies. I didn't want to focus on writing at that time. I went on to college and post graduation and all. Then finally in 2014, I thought, no, this is my calling. Let's get into it. So 2014 is the year when my book got published.
Yes, and I see that your book is published quite a few years back. The one on the collection of micro tales. So that's because it
2014.
wasn't even that popular that time. So it's quite interesting that that is when you had released it. Great, that's lovely. And Meera, I mean, I have known Meera to be such a passionate, storyteller, someone who loves stories. So was that always the case as a child, Meera? How did the writing bug hit you?
Yes, I used to make stories to escape from situations, to bunk classes. Not in college, but right from the
That's
school
such an
days.
honest confession, Meera.
I know.
It's an honest thing. It's an honest thing. And how did writing happen? It just happened, Anu. Like for example, I used to blog a lot in LinkedIn platform.
Okay.
So when I used to work as a HR, a recruiter, or working with all the employees, so many things used to happen in the organization. Few things you just laugh about it. Few things are, like some jingalala, humorous kind of a thing. And I was like, oh my God, I have to talk about this. Like I used to always talk to myself. There's a lot of thought bubbles in my mind. And then I started, putting it in the LinkedIn. And there was one post which I wrote, old wine in a new bottle. And people were like, oh my God, you have to write more. And I was like, it's a normal human tendency when somebody praises you or appreciates you. You're like, okay, fine, let me do more, let me do more. And
yes,
I just
of course, it's an encouragement, definitely.
Yeah. So, and my parents used to say, Meera, stop telling stories. And then we went to organize, Meera, stop telling. I'm like, I will say stories. Why are you asking me not to say stories? I mean, maybe that is the strength that I started telling stories. I used to give tuitions to children. And to make them understand the concept, I used to sing, dance with them, and then, tell them, yeah, this is what is the concept all about. Then they were like, Auntie, you're telling story. And like everywhere I could hear stories. Okay, let me tell stories. And then the writing happened, and one of my friends, she tagged me for this 100 days writing marathon. Like 100 days continuously, you have to write about something. And I was like, what do I write? Every day, 100 days happiness. What do I really write about happiness? And the 10th day, when I was about to blog about my experience, my dad was dying. And I was just telling him, like, Appa, I'm going to write a book. I want to, I've already thought something in my mind. There was a pause, and he said, just keep writing about whatever you think. I think you love writing, you love sharing things, whatever is happening around you, just go ahead. And that's it. It just goes like a flow.
Right.
That's
true.
Something like, a healing process, I would say.
Right. Very interesting. Yeah, I think you all have very interesting stories of how it all started. So now coming to, do you remember the story behind your first microfiction story? Like the first one, whenever you wrote, what was the story behind it? Like, was there a particular thought which triggered it? Was it for a contest maybe? Was it some other reason? Like, just want to know the story behind that first story that you wrote in this format. So yes, Anupama, maybe we can hear you.
There were two actually. The first one would have been about a maid. It was 68 words maybe. There was this lady in the morning. She was hunting up and down. She was getting restless, and the way it is. The way it is written, you feel, she's waiting for the daughter to come back from play or something. Then it realizes when the maid walks in, she gets very highly relieved. And that was a very small tale that I written. The more serious one was, as I mentioned earlier, one I wrote about infidelity. That's the actual, recent story that I had written. And then there were 3 parts to it. Those were made into one and put into an anthology, and that came in Chronicles of Urban Nomads.
I've read that one. Yes. Okay, wonderful.
I don't even remember the name of my first protagonist. It starts with
I know it's quite long back. Yeah.
Miranda. It's not Miranda, but it's a very Mandira. Yeah. Mandira.
Okay. Lovely. Nice. What about you, Archana? The story behind your first story?
So I had to, it was for a competition because till then I hadn't known about much about microfiction. So must be about 8, 9 years ago. And the I wanted to write about this incident which happened with my aunt. So she was in a marriage where the husband was extremely domineering, and
Okay.
he had his own set of weird rules. So one of which was that she can't have coffee. Okay, so she couldn't
Okay.
drink coffee. No one should drink coffee at home.
Oh.
So yeah, so I don't know. So coffee is addictive or whatever, you know. So and he had this
Okay.
rule that, and she used to love coffee all through her, growing up years or
Of
till her
course.
marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So later on, much later in life, after he passed away, so once when she was sitting with me and enjoying her cup of coffee, so she told me about it. That one of the
Ah.
things, that uh, she didn't tell me that actually that this is a big joy which I've got after he's passed away. That's not exactly what she tried to convey, but just seeing her enjoying the coffee gave me an idea for a story, and that was, I think, one of the first stories which I had written in as microfiction. And
I remember the story when you mentioned, yeah, when you were talking about this incident, I could, connect like my memory going there that I
actually, that
remember
story
reading such a
became
story.
the most popular one out of all the
Yeah,
Saturday
yeah,
short.
yeah.
Very, very popular one. Maybe truth is, of course, much stranger than fiction, I guess,
Yes,
always.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Interesting. That's nice. What about you, Ritvika?
Uh, well, actually, I'm a very lazy person, by nature. So,
I love how
so
Ritvika
that
is so
is
honest about it. I'm very lazy.
so that is one of the reasons why I still remember the year. It was around
Okay.
2008 when I first started like searching. Is there anything which is a
Mm-hmm.
shorter than a short story? Is there anything like that? Like you have
Mm-hmm.
novel,
Okay.
novella. So what is that? Shorter than a short story. So at that point of time, I remember searching through internet-based sources, some libraries and the journals which we had. I didn't find anything which is officially described as something which is a story, but which is a shorter than a short story.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first trigger which actually hunted me. Like, what if a shorter, like if you go by the dictionary description or the literary description of a short story, it should be minimum 5,000 words in whatever language it is. Going by the English dictionary or the English official definition of
Literary
short story, it
definition.
should
Yes,
be
yes.
5,000 to
Mm-hmm.
15,000 words. So, what if a story is less than a 5,000 words? Can't we have a story which can just narrate in 500 words? That was the first drop of idea which struck
Mm-hmm.
me and started
Mm-hmm.
stretching me my own writing self, that can I write a complete story with a introduction, with a body and with a conclusion, which will just be within 500 words. So that was
Right.
my target. And then I slowly started writing, and around 50 stories I had written in, say, another 2 years. So by 2010, I had 40 to 50 stories, micro stories, which were written. Now,
Wow.
next is the problem of acceptance. Like whenever you start something new, it's very difficult to get accepted by the world.
Yes. Yes.
So I started hunting for like publishers. I started sending the concept notes, synopsis, and everything. So it mostly ended up with the rejections, of course. But there was some lesson which I got to know, like which actually helped me in completing a few things with respect to a micro story. The first
Okay.
thing I learned through that journey was it is not a short story. Then what you are writing, what you are submitting, your stories are too small. That's the multiple times I heard that feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
took a different route. Like I thought, yes, it is not a short story which I'm writing. I'm writing a shorter than a short story kind of a thing. So let me give a name to it. So at that time, it was called nano tales. Nano
Mm-hmm.
fiction was there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was only in China and South Korean literature they used to have that.
Wow.
So
I think we're getting a lot of information from you there, because, like your story is more like it was triggered from your curiosity. I also was not much aware of what you're
And
sharing.
a
So I
lot
think
of
that's quite
research have gone in,
interesting.
like what is microfiction writing and all. So those
Hmm.
had flash fiction. This kind of phrases were there, but those all were translated version of Chinese or South Korean literature. So there was nothing
Oh,
in English literature equivalent to microstory at that time. So
acha.
then I submitted a kind of it's not a nomination, but there is a way by which you can submit a proposal to the Webster and other authorities who actually
Okay.
approve this new style of writings. So I talked to
Oh.
them and then went through their discussion process and all. So then finally I submitted my requisition that let this come up as a new genre of writing and let us call it as a micro story. So that's how the micro story usage for English first time came in. I mean, it was approved
Wow.
after years of review.
So
And
we are sitting with the person who is responsible in a way, in our own way to, I think, what everybody is doing today. So Reetwika, I think now I suddenly feel like more special that, all stalwarts are sitting with me here.
But
But
now,
yeah,
if you
wonderful.
see, so that was the submission where official definition of micro story in English
Hmm.
got
Okay.
documented, and as per that, it is 500 words. So up to
Hmm.
500 words is the ideal length of an English
A
micro
micro.
story.
Okay. Okay.
That
Hmm.
got officially
Because this question comes up a lot about the length. Like somebody will be like, okay, what is exactly the length of a flash fiction or a micro story? And this thing keeps coming up. So I think that's pretty interesting information there, and I'm sure it's helping even those who are watching. So that's wonderful, Ritvika. I think it was quite insightful. As we are also getting comments, there are comments are just flowing. I'll probably just read them out in a few minutes after Meera shares her story, like story behind your first micro story.
Definitely. So here is the story behind the story. So until first standard, yes, I did my first standard twice, and even I have few marks card which my dad has kept it in his drawer, and which says like 1 out of 15, 0 out of 20, and he's still not given that to Radiwala. He says, "Oh, these are very precious." I never realized they are very precious because when I started revisiting those marks, that's when I realized there is some story behind it. Then I was like, I started. Then he said like I
Right.
used to create stories to teachers like today I want to write the exam, I'll come and write tomorrow. So he said you have always been doing all these nakras, so I think you should pick the pen and start writing. So he's been the main person behind I writing stories and the day-to-day
Correct.
observations,
Correct.
our experiences, and even now, I'm sure you can hear my paw, who's also narrating a micro tale from the background.
Correct.
So, this is the way, this is the way I've been connecting with things around. Micro tales to me, it's something. It's like it's very, 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 very near. So all my experiences are there in my notepad. Even the first book which I wrote, it was just in my mobile. So it is a collection of micro tales which got into a book. So it's something like part of me, I feel. So when exactly
Lovely.
it
Yes.
started, just an experience, I would say.
Yeah, right, right. It's I think something intrinsic, as I understand, from you, that you just feel it's you. So I would like to share some of the comments. So Mrinalini says that's too amazing. Wow, kudos to the creator of micro stories. Then there is Shivani who is saying this is an awesome gathering. Thank you, Shivani. And then there is Shilpa who says such an interesting and enlightening discussion. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're liking it. Okay, now we have a question as well, but I think it may make sense to take up this question after what I'm going to ask you all. So now, there's always this thing about, especially, if I go by the requests we also get on at Beyond the Box, a lot of writers ask us that we are interested in this format. We love to, take up the different micro story challenges also, which a lot of platforms today are coming up with them. But they always have this question about, like, how does one really go about writing an effective micro story? Like, what really makes for an effective one, and what is there like a certain process which can be followed to ensure, or things to keep in mind basically when you're writing in this format versus when maybe one writes a longer story, because of course a lot of things you cannot put it in a shorter story. So how is your approach? Like, if you could just talk about how you approach writing, say, a micro story, and how you think that, okay, if I do this, or if I keep this in mind, then yes, probably I'm most likely going to come up with an effective story. So yes, Anupama, we can start with you.
See, if you're writing for like any competition, like a picture prompt, if you're looking at a picture prompt and you're trying to do it, then you look at the picture deeply. Do not, you figure out, see, there'll be 90% will be approaching it in a particular way. So there is a particular, process by which people will think. Okay, there is a particular hawa that is there, for lack of better word. That it could be about. So try and see if you can go against the tide. And second is, if you can use wordplay. If you can use interesting wordplay and use that. Secondly, you also think if you can, whatever are the, as Archana has just told us, that real life is far more interesting. So if you read the papers every day, some weird incident pops up, something that see if you can, twist it and put it in 100 words. And that is, see if you can, and always try and see if you can swim against the tide. Don't have to go to the popular feeling that is there in the cyberspace.
I think that's a very good point you've made there. Yep. That's true. Yes, Archana, some words of wisdom from you.
Yeah. So one thing I would, I'll just talk a little bit about flash fictions which do not work.
I think it would convey the point anyway. Yes.
Yeah. So usually I think some of the flash fictions which don't work actually concentrate on more than one thing, Even if you concentrate on two different ideas in a story, you're trying to convey two different things in a story, it's not going to work. So you need to have a very unified theme. What you're talking about has to be on only one thing. Your focus has to be just one. And so this has to be one scene, one character, and one theme.
Right.
Everything has to be just one. So as soon as you make it a little more broader, when it becomes two characters itself, it's like you're walking on a tightrope, literally. You need to really, play with very, very carefully. Anything more than that itself, it's going to be difficult. And the thing, just like what Anupama said, the other important thing is wit. How intelligently and how differently you're trying to think about what you're trying to convey.
Right.
So when just like what she said, any image or anything pops up, it's always everyone thinks in a similar way.
Yes.
So the second you try and think in a different tangent, you've got a story.
Right.
And the third, I think, most important thing would be language. Here, it's like when you write a novel, if you put in an extra sentence, it's still okay. You can still get away with it. But here, I think even single extra word can, make or break the story.
Yes, correct.
Limited words and the most impactful and right words will make the biggest difference, I guess.
Yes, right. Agree. I think we are getting some great tips from you all. Reetwika?
Well, I'll definitely go by what Anupama and Archana said. Like whenever you are looking or aiming to write a micro story, the two most important factors which one should keep in mind is there's no scope for, like what Archana said, extra
Yes.
word. So it has to be the slimmest usage of language. At the same time, we have to avoid using very tough or unconventional words, because if you are replacing a big phrase with a small word and that word is not so known or not so popularly used or known by the common people who are reading it, so that can also spoil the reading experience of the readers. The most important thing you should keep in mind as a writer is, I'm writing the book not for an English expert. I'm writing the book for people who love or enjoy reading or get entertained by reading a book. So I'm writing for my readers. I'm not writing for the critics or reviewers all the time. I'm not saying that is not important, but to reach to more people, that is something is very important. You should not bore out your readers with tough and hard words.
Especially, I think in this format, that may make more sense. When somebody is
we
just
have a boundary
there
of
to
say,
teach.
let's say 500 words, and within 500 words, if I'm using say 10% of the words that if I am not able to understand, then it will not have any impact after the reading is over. That's one point, and the other important point is the number of characters you have in the story. Even if it's a supporting character or a lead character, it ideally should not exceed more than 4. 3 is good, 4 is max. It is wonderful if you can keep it within 2. So that's even it's even more difficult as a writer to restrict a complete story, because we are not calling it as a drop of thought. We are calling it at the end of it's a story. So if it's a story, it should have a definite start and a definite end with limited number of characters. So that is a very important point from a writing perspective. And from a reader's perspective, it is how interesting it is to get to know something new out of just 500 words. What is that you can make me think over after the story ends? And third point, it is generally I say in all my talks, there's a very popular saying in Bengali literature, maybe who are Bengali who will be able to relate to what I want to mean is, it's like after reading even a short story it is called, but I think for micro story it is even more important that after you finish the last line of the story, it should have such an impact on the reader that you will still want for more. What's next? If it was something additional was here, I would have enjoyed it more.
I think you have to leave them asking for more. I think at that point,
that is something in micro story. It should be there.
I agree. I think from all three of you, we've got great tips. And now we go to the one who runs a platform, where she gives a platform to writers to write micro stories. Let's make stories, Dino. So yes, Meera, not just as a writer, but also as someone, I think, who owns that platform, who reads micro stories every day, like you're reading, micro stories every day. So yes, what are the tips that you would like to give?
Sure, Anu. We already have Anupama Jain, Archana, and Reetwika who have shared the brilliant points. So, what is that I'm going to be sharing is that to picturize the outcome in our mind. What is there in our mind if we can visualize in front of our eyes, so that we see that the character and the stories or the poem, whatever it is just playing a picture in front of our eyes, and how we can put it in a funnel and we can give the story or the essence of the story that as a writer we want to give it to our readers. It has to be funneled. So might be when we imagine, I'm sure, around 500 to 1,000 words at a given point of time, and we have to save it. So editing plays an important role. Keeping editing and the outcome, it has to go hand in hand. That's one. And the second thing I would say is we have so many platforms, including Let's Make Stories, Dino, where we give the picture and they perceive the picture in their own way and they give a new dimension in the form of a story or a poem.
Yes.
What if there is no picture in front of us? I'm sure most of us would have written short stories or the flash fiction without a picture theme in our mind. So the imagination flows. So how we can get this imagination funneled, put it in just that 99 to 100 words. And most important thing, as Reetwika had mentioned, simple words, because if we can put the simple words, anybody can read, and that's what we should actually be looking for. Plus the feedback and other things which goes hand in hand, we have to always keep in our mind that yes, something can always be
Yes.
done, and finishing it in such a way that readers wanted, okay, you have written it only in 100 words, but we want to hear more. Like that's a kind of a sequel we have to think in our mind when we picturize an outcome.
Yes, 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 yes. I think we have got fabulous, tips and about especially, keeping the writing process of writing such micro stories. I think, Anupama, you want to add something, I guess?
Yeah, if I may, one thing I would like to say, this is a tip only for the budding writers.
Yes.
Invest in whatever resources that are available for you. Nothing like a good book of antonyms and synonyms. We don't want the same words and same expressions that are repeating. That
Yes.
actually takes away the beauty of the whole thing, because we want the precise word that's going there.
Yes, yes.
Of course, it's a matter of internal this thing that they want to go for a very hyphened word or a simpler word, but nothing like knowing the exact word or the synonyms and
Exactly.
antonyms.
Yes. I think that's a very good point, especially in microfiction. I think when you don't have the scope to detail out things, I think there all the more it's important to know the precise word which can, maybe convey a certain emotion or whatever it is, in that story. So I think we have got superb tips there for all the writers, and even like Meera said, like cutting down on the excesses, like she said that you ultimately have to, sieve. I think, yeah, that's a very good point. And all of you have given fabulous suggestions, which in fact our audience is summarizing themselves, so if you see the comments, they are actually summarizing each of the suggestions and posting it as the comments. So I'm really glad.
In fact, I must say we have a brilliant set of audience. Actually, I was just going through the comments, and the way, like Anupama said, they have Suja Ram, I can see.
Yes,
Mrinalini Patra.
everybody.
Wonderful summarizing it.
Yes,
So,
that is what.
princess to the as well.
Really
It's
true.
always
And I think these sessions become more, interesting when you have an audience which is constantly engaging and taking away everything. So I think that's amazing. Okay, so there's a question before I go on to my next question. There's a question from Mrinalini Patro, who herself, by the way, is a wonderful, microfiction writer. I do enjoy reading her micro stories. So she's asking, should microfiction writers stick to a certain frequency? Do you think that writing too regularly dries out the well, or it's just the opposite, that the inertia might build up? So any of you can take this, like whoever like wishes to.
So,
I think
So
even
that-
Anupama has something to add, and Archana, I guess even Meera was saying. So yes, probably all of you can add your suggestions here. So yeah, maybe we can start with you, Archana. I think you were trying to take this.
I think both of them are true. Frankly, both are
Okay.
true. Like I had mentioned, I had written one flash fiction every Saturday for nearly 2 years. Yeah, okay, and I don't. Maybe I missed a couple of weeks, but apart from that, I don't think I've missed also any week. So writing regularly doesn't really mean that
Mhm.
you're going to have an dearth of ideas. In fact, I feel when I write regularly, I get more ideas. But on the other hand, there is this thing which my publisher usually says, that it's your mind. Your writing is actually like a well. So every time you write something, you're making you're actually taking out something from the well,
Mhm.
and you have to fill the well too. And when you don't fill it, it of course is there are the chances of that going dry, and of course not getting any ideas, stuck for ideas, stuck with
Yes.
writer's block and all this. And how do you get ideas is by reading. So the
Right.
one, I wouldn't say only reading, but one of the things is reading.
Yes.
And I think though many people nowadays write microfiction, the number
Mhm.
of people who read microfiction is very less.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So
writers are more than the readers.
when I initially started out, I used to have a diary. Nowadays, I use a note-taking digital tool, but and I used to note down anything which is short and attractive. So, for example, sonnets, haiku, or it doesn't need to be microfiction as such, but anything which is short and written well. So, I think I might be having all of Emily Dickinson's poems, which are hardly 5 or 6 lines, but they convey so much. And so, even if you read an entire day, you can keep reading those 6 lines again and again and think of 100 new things about it. So I think that's how you get ideas. So when you read shorter pieces, so there are tweets, there are books, entire books being tweeted. I think there was a famous one of entire Mahabharata being condensed into a set of tweets.
Oh, okay, that's pretty interesting.
So I guess reading more of microfiction and other forms of short writing will also add to the value that we can get from writing. So of course you need to fill the well too, but I don't think it gets dried out only because you are writing. It's not really
correct. Anupama, you want to add something to this?
I would rather think it like an engine that needs regular oiling rather than a well, So the oil that you would like to put is your observation, your reading, your inferences, your assimilation, and the outpouring should be according to your frequency that you're comfortable. Some are comfortable with daily this thing, some could be weekly. But just as friction will or it will just get rusted, this is just I'm sorry about that. So I feel it's an engine that needs to be oiled regularly. Without that, you will get rusted.
I think, that's a good way of looking at it. Meera and Reetwika, you agree, or you want to add something to it?
Maybe, Rinalini, I loved your question. The first thing which I wanted to appreciate is the way you have put the question in. And my take on your question will be like, for me, creativity with a deadline really doesn't work for me. So I like to keep it come naturally as I want it to happen, because thoughts are something which are driven by many other factors which are happening all around us. And as the expression or the ambience changes, it really impacts the way we think or write a word. So definitely I'll say from my perspective, because different persons will have different ways of penning down thoughts.
Yes, right.
You should first aim, if you're aiming to write a microfiction, because for microfiction, number of words really matter, number and quality of words.
Yes.
So it will be a suggestion from my side that try to find out what suits you the most, a deadline or not a deadline. So if it matters that yes, if I have to meet some timeline key within this time, I have to submit something, I have to do it, that have to factor will ultimately dry up your well, to quote your word. If it comes naturally to that's fine. Every week if I write 1 or 2 pieces that will actually inspire me to write more, create more, go for it.
Oh,
but
not fair enough. Yes, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Or the frequency.
Yes. What about you, Meera? You like anything else you would like to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I would. First of all, I wish to say the question what Mrinalini has posted in itself is like a micro story in itself. You know, that's the way I look at it. Anu, Archana, and Reetwika have already shared the aspects. So to put it with an example, for example, when we give a blank slate to a child and we ask him, him or her to just write something, they just go about it. So I would say when a theme or you have something in your mind to write, especially if it's a microfiction or a micro tale, just freely write it. Later on, you can come back, edit, sieve it, and you will get the picture that you are looking for. But to the same child, we tell, no, you have to write A, you have to write B in this box, and the child will be just looking at us. So when we actually work towards a deadline, we are sometimes pressurized to take part in events, because that's something which I observe is happening. There are lots of platforms which they are giving us opportunity to take part in so many events, and it so happens that all the writers, for example, most of the writers will be associated at a given point of time at least 8 to 10 platforms where they are writing continuously. Monday there is in one place, Tuesday in the other platform, Friday the other platform. So it's like, okay, now I have to write. So have to write, like Reetwika was mentioning, that will actually pressurize us, and that's when the drying of the well happens.
Right. So I think the key here,
taking pause is good. Taking pause is good.
Yeah.
Just a
So I
minute,
think
just
the
for
key takeaway
1
would be.
second.
Yes,
Just a minute, just for something different from what they said. I maybe totally agree with them, but if I didn't have a deadline, I wouldn't be a writer. There would have been no writing ever happening because unless and until I'm given a deadline. So frankly, even now my publisher has to tell me this is the date. If you submit after this, I am not going to publish you. Unless and until he says that, it will never happen. It's never going to happen, because there is a particular book which he told me to do. It's halfway done, and it's been a year since it's halfway done because he didn't give me a deadline. So even now I tell him, you didn't tell me.
Probably here our personality. I mean, I guess some of us just work better when there's a deadline hanging on our head. For the others, probably it can be obstructing. So I think somewhere it is also important to understand ourselves, like, what works better for us. And what I take away from the whole discussion is that a balance is anyway essential, because you just cannot be laid back. Okay, let's just wait when it happens. So I think in a way it's good, but it's I guess maybe striking a balance there might be important. So that was a great question, Mrinalini. And so I now come to my next question, which is there are two parts to this question. One is the perception and one is the future. Now, in the perception, now, I, of course, even I write micro stories, and I know so many people who do. And I have seen there is always this perception that micro fiction is not true literature. There are many people who have that kind of thinking. I mean, so it is also considered something easy by some. Like, generally, there's this tendency that because it's fewer words, maybe like 10 or 40, so theek hai, it's not something really great. So, keeping that perception in mind, do you think that the future of this particular format of writing, how do you see it? And because three of you actually have books also, like, Anupama, your Masala Mix did have some really short stories as well in that collection. And Archana, of course, has, her own wonderful book, Tit for Tat. And Reetwika, you have your book. And Meera, you have an entire, like your platform. So based on your books or, your platform, based on your own experience, how do you see the perception? How do you see this breaking with respect to the future the writers can imagine having, if they want to pursue this format of writing? So just your opinion on that. So yes, Anupama.
I would like to give what I feel. This is just my perception and this thing is, if one considers themselves or herself as a writer, one shouldn't be limited by the medium or the word length. You should be open to whatever. Initially, online publishing or ebooks was something that was scoffed upon, and now everybody, and most of the traditionally published authors, everybody is writing ebooks, and everybody, because the need of the hour, you change accordingly. And the next generation is, Instagram is a huge tool for them. Insta poetry, Insta this thing, and that. So they don't have, if there was a tweet by Mr. Anant, he said lockdown is supposed to be a period where books were supposed to sell. They didn't. So we are not a book. We are not a nation of readers. How true, I don't know. But if that is the case, then the people are not going to have time to invest in books. Of course, longer version, it gives you such free handle to explore the medium of writing. You can do wonders with it. But if the need of the hour seems to be smaller, shorter, and instant stories, well, one has to be open to it, and one should be able to experiment in all the mediums that are possible eventually, because you're just telling a story. The medium shouldn't be such a matter of concern.
Correct. Right. Yeah, that's a very valid point. What do you think about this, Archana? And tit for tat, of course, I think it was well received. But yeah, did you also experience that some people were not showing interest because it was in this format?
So Tit for Tat was my second book. The first one was Birds of Prey, which is a full-length novel.
Yes, of course.
So so for me, I compare them both because I had a novel and I had this.
You have that comparison point. Yes.
So definitely a full-length novel was much better received and much more loved when compared to the collection of flash fiction stories. I had already, since I was already nearly writing for 2 years, I had an audience. So that's why I feel the book had already an audience who were following my stories, who were reading my stories so it was good in a way that I did have an audience. So the book did get a good reception. But when I compare it with my novel, definitely nothing as much as that, So the book, the novel definitely received a much, but I started writing it as a way to connect with the audience. So I didn't write flash fiction because I wanted to publish a book or because, because of any other reason. Even the book happened because the publisher decided that it would be good to have because I was already having an audience, it was his idea that it would be good to have a collection of my flash fiction stories, which have not been published online till now into a book. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. I didn't even have an idea that this is something that I could do. So, so I guess, but that aside, if you are looking looking at yourself as a writer, not just as a microfiction writer, but as a writer of novels and books and other things, I think microfiction could be the greatest thing in which you can attract your audience, because they get a taste of your thinking, your way of writing, and they know what exactly they can expect from you. And that kind of I don't think that kind of audience you can build through any other medium, for your fiction.
I agree.
Especially.
I think that's
and right now I think attention is the biggest problem. The biggest commodity is attention, actually. So this is something which you can immediately catch your readers' attention, and if they like you, then they might even pick up your book. So it's a natural process from there.
Right. That's right. Reetwika, I would like to know your experience, considering you actually published your books long back. So how was it? Did you feel that mindset? And of course, you did talk about how it was a challenge initially and how you actually got this, the name micro fiction. So how was it later? Like, was the reception good, or do you think we still have a long way to go with respect to opening up to the idea of microfiction to be considered literature?
Yes, I'll rather like to refer to my personal experience with the book first. So, yes, there is definitely a challenge in the acceptance of microstory as an accepted form of literature in English.
Yes.
If we look at Indian regional languages, especially Bengali, Onugolpo we call it. Onugolpo is a very well-known and accepted form of writing. But in English, it is still a challenge. There are many critics who don't like to accept it, even it as a form of literature, because I'm not criticizing anyone, but that might be that paradigm shift of thought is perhaps the need of the hour, like accepting small and powerful things. Small might not be non-impactful. So that is the paradigm shift which is required from the world of literature. Now, looking at me from my writer's view, what I feel like, the reader's demands are changing. For example, we should always look up to our own self as a writer, not from our eyes, from our reader's eyes. What our readers want. Everybody has very less time in hand nowadays to do anything. Set apart reading, even for cooking, we look for some quicker recipes. For anything we do, we are in dire dearth of time, and we have to respect our readers' time as well. So, what I feel personally is, if the world of readers are looking for shorter fiction, go for it. If they want a novel, go for it. But biggest point here is like, micro stories from a writer's perspective is more difficult than a novel, because in a novel, like Archana said sometime back, I remember, you still have a scope of writing even a para extra that will be taken as a good scene setting or a background setting. But in case of my story, keeping it slim and impactful is the biggest challenge.
Right.
And going by the trend, what I am actually getting from my readers is, nowadays people are more getting engaged to listening shorter fictions rather reading. So that is why I think going forward in the next 5 years, audio story will actually take the pace up. So that will be the future of microfiction as what I see from today. And hopefully by in the next year, actually my first audio storybook is coming up.
Wow.
And it up in audible format in Amazon and also in other formats.
Great.
So that
I
is
think this,
something
in fact, even in the this thing came up even in the previous, roundtable about how audio will now slowly take over. I mean, I remember even this had come up even then, that in with respect to the future. So I think that we look forward to your audio book, Reetwika. And Meera, so if you could talk in this context, of course, if you could just talk of with respect to Let's Make Stories. Of course, you have so many writers writing for you. So how do you think is the perception, and do you ever come across writers who share this concern that is this really is this format really going to help in my writing journey? So yeah, if you could talk from the aspect of Let's Make Stories.
Sure, Anu. So today in the market, the demand is, it's vast. It's lot, I would say it's high. And the supply is just in this rectangular case. Most of our work, most of the transactions are just done in this. So how much, for example, there are two kinds of the market. Like Archana was talking about the novel, and the other one, and then we were talking about the micro stories. So we have people to read, our stories in both the genre. It might vary in few percentages, this side, that side, or this side and that side. The balance might vary.
Right.
A year back, when we used to receive some videos, for example, we were ready to view that video, even if it was for like 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But today, the thing is, within 1 minute, how much can you convey?
Yes.
Within 1 minute, how much can you convey? So it's similarly, it works in the micro stories. Within 100 words, what's a kind of a story? What gravity can you give in your stories is something which is measured. So we will have both the kind of audiences. And that's why we're coming up with lots of these anthologies also, like compared to anthology release last year. And if you see to this year, in this lockdown period, it's really high. Because people are now, they are reading novels, and they also want to read short stories. It's like in one anthology, you'll have 10 to 15 stories. Just read, finish, keep going. So we will have both the kind of the market, and it's very important as a writer how we can meet the demand, how we can supply.
Right.
So it's a demand and supply thing. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, great. I think again we have got varied insights from all four of you, and all of it I agree with respect to. I think at the end we all need to kind of, I think, work in conjunction. The readers and writers. Readers also have to open their minds a little. Writers also have to embrace and maybe take risks as well. So those were great thoughts there. Now before just to let the audience know that all these amazing writers here are going to read one of their best or favorite micro story for us. But before we do that, I want to do a fun rapid fire with you all, just to know you all slightly better. Okay, so the answers have to be rapid, and no, like Karan Johar, need not be full of fire. They can just be rapid, and they are very simple questions, and I'm a very nice person. So I'm not going to put you on the spot at all. Okay, so you all are ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll start with a different person each time, so that otherwise it will be like I get time to think and I don't get time to think. So yeah. Okay. So now the first question is actually something which I have picked from a post I saw today on Facebook on the Wonder House page, and that is, if you could get a chance to interview an author, could be living or dead. That's, I mean, irrespective of that, who would that author be? Okay, so this time we'll start with you, Anupama.
Oh my God, you did put me on a spot. I think
Whoever comes to your mind instantly, maybe like.
Archana never, no doubt about that.
Okay,
Because,
wonderful.
Who would imagine sitting, waiting for patients, and he writes such exquisite stories, creates a character out of, unknowingly he murders the character, but he has to bring back to life because the people can't get enough of him. I mean,
right. Yeah. Nice. By the way, there's a compliment for you, Anupama. Rinalini says that she's going off track, but your rings cannot be missed exquisite. So see, people are not just listening to your thoughts, but they are actually observing you so carefully. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean,
thank you, Rinalini. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes, Archana. So one author, if you could interview, who would that be?
J.K. Rowling.
Me
too. Another
yes. Reetwika?
Ruskin Bond.
Another amazing person, seriously. I mean, in fact, I think I've grown up, reading so many of his books.
Exactly.
It would be interesting. And what about you, Meera?
Radhakrishnan Pillai.
I think, Meera, you having some, you probably need to unmute. So one author you would like to interview, if you could get a chance to do that.
I was mentioning Radhakrishnan Pillai. You can hear me?
Interesting. That would be... No. I think there was some problem in your sound. Okay, great. Okay, cool.
Very
So we got some
as a character, and I love the way he has brought that particular aspects in his book.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Great. Okay. This time we'll start with Archana. Okay, so one genre of writing which you haven't touched yet, but you are interested to explore. Like, maybe you feel that someday probably I would like to explore that particular genre.
Chick lit.
I would love to read that from you, really, because I have read generally all very deep, heavy. Although I feel chick lit also is deep in its own way, but some light read definitely from you. I think
I am a fan of chick lit movies, and so that's my go-to whenever I need something warm and comforting. But I haven't written, so whenever I start writing, like Anupama knows, bodies fall.
That is for all of you. I mean, I was seeing that discussion thread on the Book of Romance that everybody was trying to kill somebody, and I'm like, oh God.
I didn't even make an attempt because I knew it's not going to happen. So,
oh my God,
same
there are 3 murders in my book. So not working.
Right. Yes, Reetwika, what about you? Any particular genre which you want to explore?
Modern fairy tale. Like all fairy tales are very old, so something maybe I'll like to try.
That should be very interesting, I think. Yep. What about you, Meera?
Romance. Oh my God. I want to try that.
I would love to read romance from you because I remember having a discussion with Meera about how we all now cannot just write romance, or we've gone above that stage. So it would be interesting.
I don't know. I think I've gone into this kind of a bubble after reading so many people writing the romance genre. When I try to writing something, I think, oh, this doesn't look romantic. One, okay, fine, let's just keep it aside. This sounds more like a comedy if I write something even in the romance genre.
Nice. What about you, Anupama?
Humor.
Come on, you're already into it. Something else now.
Yes.
You're the queen of humor.
ऐसे कुछ नहीं अभी तो
I think Anupama should start killing people. Think about something in the horror.
Maybe Anupama, you should probably try.
Murder mystery, I've written thrillers, ghost stories, romance, सब कुछ खत्म. There's one book Dipankar is threatened to publish. Experimental writing. So I had done my entire, loophole checking of when Padmabani Pola by a flow chart. So I had taken this huge chart and I had drawn a flow chart, and all the inputs and outputs and all the decision makings, everything was, properly coinciding. So I want to do a flow chart story.
Interesting. Okay. So people are giving suggestions for you all. Piyusha says that she's targeting Archana for romance. And then for Anupama, Piyusha says science fiction. Okay. And there are more suggestions.
Yeah.
Someone saying fantasy. Rituparna says fantasy for Anupama. And
Oh my God.
Meera
and
rom-com.
what Kalpana says for Meera.
Kalpana
Okay.
says.
So you all have got some suggestions out there, so we'll take that.
I will.
Great, yeah. Okay.
I will.
So now the next one, we'll start with Reetwika. Okay, your one-line response to somebody who comes and tells you that microfiction writing is not literature. One-line response, what you will give?
It is the future of literature.
Good one. Good one. Good one. Okay. Meera, what about you? One-line response to somebody who says microfiction is not literature.
Might be that's for you, not for me.
Okay. That's pretty straight. I think that's pretty cut to cut. Huh? Nice. Okay. What about you, Anupama?
Literature is what literature thinks. Yeah, microfiction is for microbrains. If you feel so, yeah, it isn't. It takes huge brains to write microfiction. So microfiction isn't for microbrains.
Nice. I like how you played around with words even for this one. So great one there. And Archana, your response.
I'd probably ask them to define what is literature.
Define literature. I think that's a good one. So I'm going to use all of these ideas next time somebody tells me that. Okay, so the last question in the rapid fire before you all read out your story. This is just for fun. You have to rank from, in your order of preference, love, food, and books. So what comes first for you and then? So basically rank in order of your preference. Okay, so Anupama is very clear. Food, books, love. Okay, what about you, Meera?
Food always.
It's like two eyes. Food, books, and then love.
Acha, theek hai, sahi hai. What about you, Archana?
Love, books, food.
Okay, chalo, we had a different answer there. And Reetwika, what about you?
Books, food, and love.
Okay, that's interesting. I will go with food first. Like if somebody would have asked me this, तो मेरे लिए भी food पहले होता. Okay, that was fabulous. You all were really rapid. I don't have a hamper to give you, but I can give you lots of love instead. But yeah, thank you so much for that. So are you all now ready to read out one of your microfiction stories before we close this discussion? Yes. Okay. So let's. So I just to let the audience know. Thank you so much first of all for joining. And yes, they are going to read out their. I mean, of course, they have hundreds of wonderful stories. But I just asked them to pick one for you all, so you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy this recital. So yes, Anupama, you can start.
I had recently, yesterday I had shared a story on Draupadi I had written. So when I had written on Sita also. So I am going to read out that. Strong enough to have this is a 113 word story, so 130 words. Strong enough to have the Shiv Dhanush as a toy, coy enough to surrender to Ram who broke a toy. Adamant enough to give up the palace pleasures and walk the harsh jungles with her husband, callow enough to lust after a golden deer, wily enough to make Ram go after it, naive enough to cross the Lakshman Rekha, devoted enough not to succumb to Ravana's charms and threats, committed enough to go through the Agni Pariksha, stoic enough to be the first ever documented single mother, valiant enough to say no more and join her mater, Sita. Don't we all have a part of her in ourselves, generations after generations?
Beautiful. I think I do know of this story and it is wonderfully written, really. I mean, especially, how you ended it. Because personally, I feel that the last sentence of any microfiction story can play a huge role in the impact it creates. So the last line really touched me, where you wrote about how she's there in all of us in some way, and I think, that's beautifully written. Anupama, thank you so much for that wonderful reading of your story. So yes, Archana, now we can hear you.
Misplaced fury. It happened too quickly that I could hardly react. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault, I cried. But they had no patience to hear my pleas. Each one of them had their own share of frustrations. The motorist who lost his son in an accident last year, the school teacher who was being bullied by the principal, the peon whose wife rejected all his overtures, the customs officer with a son who was a drug addict, and I was the easiest target available. They broke my glasses, bashed my body, tore my legs, and slit the thighs on which the children sat and played. They vented their fury till their hands ached and legs flailed. The yellow dress which covered me lay scratched and spoiled, revealing my body to all around. The villain had already fled the scene. If they had asked me, I would have told them. It wasn't me, it was he. He was drunk, he was always drunk. This was an accident waiting to happen. No one asked, no one cared. After all, I was just one among the innumerable school buses around the city. Now, as I stand abandoned in the shed outside the police station, covered with rust, moss, and fungus, there is just one thought that troubles me. Why didn't anyone take that little girl crushed under my wheels to the hospital? Was it because they were too busy bashing me up to notice the slight twitching of her toe?
Wow. Wow. I think it was chilling, when you were reading, especially towards the end, I was getting goosebumps. And I think the perspective of the story is amazing, like to actually narrate it from, I mean, nobody would have really thought of that. So wonderful, Archana. And really, I have amazing, like I think the title of the session was apt, that Microfiction Maestros of India. Truly, I bow to all of you. Yeah. So,
microfiction isn't literature. She's just used two literary devices. She's used personification.
true.
She has used. It is littered with such wonderful devices.
Exactly. I was actually thinking of that when you were narrating your stories, that it takes so much of creativity, thought process. I mean, so much goes behind even a microfiction story. So yes, for all the naysayers, I think you are not reading the right stories then. Yeah. Okay. So Reetwika, are you ready? Okay.
Sure. Yep. Okay. So mine is a little more than 150 words, like I say, like I write
Okay,
it
no problem. That's fine.
a little bit.
We are anyways already overshot the time, but I thought, let the discussion happen the way it's happening because it was just going so over. So yes.
So this is the book of Microstorage. So I'll read one of it.
Okay, sure.
So that's Still Waiting.
Lovely.
I'm still waiting for you, dear. I know you don't even remember me at all. But what can I do? I devoted myself at your service long back. That day, when you dumped me sloppily, it really hurt me a lot. Too painful to express in words. My rusting heart longs for your soft touch. My blood thirsts for your care. You remember? Once in your childhood, you were playing with my nerves, and your grandpa caught you red handed. My heart cried with your cries, my lips smiled in your smiles. Sometimes I thought of blaming God. He gave me the power to speak, but not unless ordered. Still could never complain. Accepted it with lowered brows because that's my job. I remained a silent observer, congregating lasting memories to share with your children. As a kid yourself, you loved playing with me, and that probably was the best part of our relation. With time, your world advanced probably at a much faster pace than mine. Your boundaries crossed the globe to bring home your modern playmates, newer beauties, faster darlings. Replacing me and my love was just a momentary decision for you. Silence taught me the way to take my last few breaths. I'm still waiting for you. Please come back once. If you remember, I am your grandpa's good old gramophone.
Oh my God. I was not amazing. I mean, you just caught me off guard in that one. Like amazing, yeah, truly. I mean, it's brilliant,
Really
brilliant. And
It's
like
like,
the
what next? Last
yeah,
line.
and it was superb, superb, very nice. And
Very
people
nice.
are saying that,
I
they
love
get experience of a long story from a short fiction, that just because of the way it's written. So amazing that was, Reetwika. I loved it. And yes,
Amazing.
Meera, now let's hear from from our dino, as she loves to call herself.
Thanks a ton. So this is something which I shared yesterday. Anupama, thanks to you. You tagged me in that post, and a series are going on
I had
now.
to read you. I had
So
to read
this is
you.
100 words. It's 100 words one. The title is The Missing Kidney. I just quenched my thirst by drinking his blood. It doesn't taste sweet like his son's. Maybe I should go hunting for one with high glucose level in blood. Because that day, the one who pulled out my kidneys was asking for his insulin injections. The chairs, the window, and the hospital hallway have seen me dying. And here I am in the headlines again. Mysteriously, two doctors found dead with their kidneys missing. Maybe it's Miss Curly. Only I know what is lying below those clean flooring. Not the broken bones, it's those bean-shaped organs.
Oh God. I mean, Meera, the thinking behind the story. I mean, I remember reading this also, and I was like, my God,
Yeah.
what has he written? Like, totally brilliant.
Yesterday when I read it, I loved it so much, Meera. It was very nicely written. And it was
Very
very
nice.
clean and very, innovative way of writing.
Yes, true. I agree. And Mrinalini also says that, she gets goosebumps. So I must say that everybody has been posting a lot of comments. So later, whenever you all get time, you can actually, go on and respond and check out the comments which they have been posting for you. So thank you so much. I had amazing. I mean, I think this will probably go down as one of my most memorable roundtable discussions. So thank you for your time, for your insights, for just being such amazing women that you all are.
Thank you.
Anupama,
Thanks a bunch. Thanks.
And I hope
Thank
you all
you.
had fun.
Yeah.
And I know we've overshot the
Yes.
time. I'm sorry about that, but I just didn't, want to cut down on any of the things that we were doing. So
That shows
Anupama,
No,
if
we
anybody
enjoyed
says,
it, Anu. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a ton.
thank
if
you.
anybody says microfiction isn't literature, so ask them to mull over these 6 words, whether correctly or incorrectly, credited to Ernest Hemingway. Baby shoes never worn for sale. Yeah, 6
Yes.
words.
Yes,
Wealth of
and
knowledge.
just it conveys so much. Oh my God,
Yeah.
even now I got, you just feel so much in just 6 words. And I remember that it always comes up, in these challenges also sometimes as an example that, like write something on those lines. So that's an amazing one.
Thank you so much. I've never had so much fun.
Yeah, great. Chalo, bye. And bye, audience. You all have been fabulous today.
Bye.
Thank you for being so interactive. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.